Welcome back to Tousi TV, your global news channel. We have some breaking news coming from the Middle East as the Israeli Defense Forces have now officially launched their ground invasion of Gaza City. Yes, the occupation of Gaza City is now starting. We do have the latest videos for you guys, which we're going to bring you guys, and also, of course, some reaction from the Israelis. There's a lot to actually cover, but we do also have our live feed from the Israeli-Gazan border, which of course, as usual, we're going to keep an eye on that as well to see what happens there. Of course, the actual assault and the attack is happening inside Gaza City, which is in the more of a central part of the Gaza Strip. First things first, let's talk about the initial update that we heard over the last hour or so. We are going to get your reaction in the live chat as usual. Of course, if you want to get more out of this channel, make sure to become a member of Tousi TV Plus by scanning the QR code or going on Tousi.tv or find the link in the description and download the Tousi TV app. Now, the Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, Eyal Zamir, of course, alongside the heads of Mossad and Shin Bet, did advise Prime Minister Netanyahu against launching the operation. This is obviously a few days ago. They were slightly scared of the lives of the Israeli hostages being endangered, as well as, of course, the casualties for the Israeli Defense Forces. We got to a point where about a week ago, the Israelis did do a mini operation on the ground in Gaza City. That was completely chaotic, but most of Gazans have now left and evacuated the city. Let's go to the latest video we've just received from Gaza City tonight. Yeah. It's finally happening. Now, we have to also talk about the last few hours before what's happening as we speak right now on the ground in the Middle East, because the IDF had to accelerate their operation to do targeted attacks on certain buildings and infrastructure because they knew exactly what could happen. Most of the civilians, as I said, have evacuated, but a lot of the operatives were still hiding in buildings. Now, the Israeli Air Force did a strike and demolished the Ghafari Tower, which is located on the Gaza City coastline. The Israeli intelligence stated that the infrastructure was actually being used and utilized by the Hamas operatives, not just for their equipment, but as one of their hubs in Gaza City. Let's go and see what happened there. That building, the tall building you can see, wait for it, and there we go. Done. Another one down. Now, for those who have been saying that Gaza City has already been flattened, of course, it's not true, as you can also see from the evidence itself. That's why the IDF have been pushing for the evacuation of the civilians to ensure that the only people remaining left are essentially Hamas or Islamic Jihad. Now, as I said, we will keep an eye on our live feed from the border, but within about 20 minutes, this is actually very important on what happened just now. Within 20 minutes, 37 Israeli airstrikes happened on Gaza City, and the message from the Israeli government is to the Gazans: if you are still in Gaza City, it's your fault. You already have places you can go. You can either go towards the south, towards Rafah. You could go to the humanitarian corridors. You could go to the west, closer to the beach. But if you're not going to do that, we will just basically take it that you are either part of Hamas or relatives or supporters of the terrorist organization. Now, Israelis also did say that they hit the infrastructure hidden inside several buildings and sites. That includes the Kauthar Tower, Mahna Tower, and the Islamic University of Gaza. And of course the unknown soldier tower in Gaza City. Let's quickly go and see what the Israelis hit just earlier on. There are still people walking around for absolutely no reason. There's no reason for you to be there. No normal human being does that. We're getting some updates from Syria as well. Okay, Egypt are now warning Israel. All right, so let's quickly give you guys the latest threat coming from the south in Egypt. The President El-Sisi has now said, "I say to the people of Israel, what is happening now undermines the future of peace and threatens your security and the security of all people in the region. It places obstacles before new peace agreements and even aborts the existing ones. The consequences will be dire, returning the region to conflict and destroying decades of peace efforts. This is a price we will all pay. Do not let the efforts of our predecessors for peace go in vain." So for the record, this is the president of Egypt. I'm not really sure what he's been drinking, but according to him, we've had decades of peace efforts that could now be destroyed. I don't think it's whether he's been keeping an eye on his own region in the Middle East, because there has been no peace. It's been absolutely chaotic, but that's, again, it's the Egyptian leadership. I don't really expect anything better. The strikes by the Israeli Air Force also targeted other high-rise buildings and key infrastructure sites. Let's go to the next video. Okay, so we do have confirmation from Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington, D.C., saying that the United States, under the leadership of President Trump, is supporting Israel's efforts when it comes to the occupation of Gaza City. All right, so going back to some of the latest updates as well, there is I think, as I said, one of the main problems right now when it comes to the PR side of this and optics is the fact that you can still see there's still enough Gazans walking around the buildings and on the streets, and this makes no sense. This whole ground invasion was supposed to be starting about 3 months ago, probably longer than that. And the initial indications would actually start to be mentioned about probably 6 months ago. There's been enough heads up. The Israelis have been giving enough time for people to evacuate. Obviously, the Egyptians are not helping, which is the funny thing, because the Egyptians who are freaking out right now, El-Sisi saying, this is really too bad. What are we going to do about the Gazans? Well, you can help them. You can. You're right next door. You have a border with Gaza. We know why you're not going to open the border. It's been quite obvious until now. But of course, if the international community don't really care about the civilians, all they want to do is just use them to say, oh, look at the Jews, the Jewish nation, they're just completely evil. Let's go to the next video from earlier. Now, both the IDF and the ISA are now reporting that 21 senior members of the Palestinian Jihad have now been eliminated in the Gaza Strip in recent times with the latest operations that have been happening. So every single one of these obviously were the senior operatives and in the leadership. So they've all been wiped out anyway. There are not many people who can actually take their places. The rest of them are just junior terrorists. They don't really have the experience. Although some of them, I know the picture is a little bit blurry, but you can also tell that some of them have young faces. They're not necessarily, they don't have the experience the same level as, for example, the SAS in Britain or anybody in the US military. So if you're poking the bear, as in Israel, don't expect a happy ending. What do you think was going to be happening? Anyway, Prime Minister Netanyahu also said that we will continue to target Hamas leaders anywhere on earth. This is obviously the reaction to the criticism that the Israelis hit Qatar in order to assassinate Hamas leadership. Let's go to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, Robbie Grammer with the Wall Street Journal. Just to put a finer point on it, would you rule out further strikes on Hamas operatives in foreign sovereign countries in the region?
Nope.
And for Secretary Rubio, what's your message to close U.S. allies like the UK, which you plan to visit, on the vote at the United Nations to advance a Palestinian state, not just to nations overall, but some of our closest allies like the UK? Thanks.
The principle that terrorists should not have immunity wherever they are, wherever they may be, was not established by me. We had a massacre a few decades ago. It's called the Munich Massacre, in which PLO terrorists murdered our athletes to the Olympic Games. And my predecessor, Golda Meir, vowed that we shall track down these terrorists and get them one by one, which is what we proceeded to do in the leading European countries. And we did this one by one by one. I didn't hear a great cry of wrongdoing to these countries.
Sure.
Even though they weren't harboring terrorists, the terrorists were there. Okay, they didn't even harbor them, as is the case in other cases. The terrorists happened to be on that soil, and we acted, which is what democracies do, including the leading democracy, when they have the ability to target terrorists to threaten their civilians. So this is a principle we established. It's a principle we follow. It hasn't changed.
Yeah. Prime Minister is right. The fact that you still have some Western European leaders, and by Western European leaders, I'm actually including Mark Carney of Canada, because his close alliance with the European Union and the betrayal of the relationship between Canada and the United States as close allies has been a little bit weird, even worse than Justin Castro Trudeau. But the reaction from the Western side, the Western liberal globalists, has been absolutely fascinating, considering obviously the media overall, the mainstream media is on their side. So if Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron say anything, the legacy media are not going to criticize those leaders. They're not going to actually scrutinize them. So they just become the parrots, and they just say, okay, so whatever Carney says or Starmer, we're just going to basically just publish it. The only people that get fully scrutinized every time they open their mouths are leaders like President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu, or, for example, in South America, Javier Milei. There is a double standard in terms of actual scrutiny, which is the reason, for example, when Netanyahu has to defend the position of Israel, he has to, every single time, he's forced to mention the other side, who are supposed to be technically allies to Israel. That includes France and all the other countries. We do have some reaction from Canadians in the live chat as well, which we will go to. But let's quickly get the response from President Trump, saying, I have just read a news report that Hamas has moved the hostages above ground to use them as human shields against Israel's ground offensive. I hope the leaders of Hamas know what they are getting into if they do such a thing. This is a human atrocity, the likes of which few people have ever seen before. Don't let this happen, or all bets are off. Release all hostages now. This is essentially the final warning from President Trump. To be fair, it's not necessarily a warning. This sounds more like a bit of a suggestion, saying Israel is doing what Israel is supposed to be doing. I'm trying to help you. This is the final message. Don't do this, because I can't stop Israel. As you know, I don't want to stop Israel. I'm backing them. But this is the final chance that you have. But on the other hand, Hamas at this point don't necessarily have any other option. They've been cornered, and the only thing they have is the hostages as leverage. They can't release all the hostages. Then it's over for them. But I'm not really sure what their plan actually is, because if the plan was to do some sort of exit deal, by the way, I'm getting rid of the spammers who are just copy and pasting, the weirdos. If the plan was to find an exit plan, then they should have found something by now. Whether they wanted to escape to Egypt or Qatar or wherever else, or Venezuela maybe. But they seem to be, because they can't really say it right now. Publicly, they can't say, okay, give us an exit plan. They can't, because that's surrender. The rest of Gazans are going to come and hunt them down. But they also need to do something, because what's the plan? If you want to be a martyr, because I know they don't want to be martyrs. The actual senior members of Hamas don't want to be martyrs. Their leadership don't want to. They brainwash everybody else to do it. But if being a martyr was so good that they would have done it by now, just go and stand in front of an Israeli soldier, done. It's not that difficult. They are greedy. They want power, but they've kind of messed up now. Well, thanks to Yahya Sinwar. So from their perspective, they sort of need to use their hostages. That's the only thing they have. But for what purpose? What is the actual plan? Because you cannot rule in Gaza, regardless of how much pressure the Western liberals, like again Macron and the others, put on Israel. The Israelis are not going to listen to you. Now, let's quickly get some reaction from you guys. We have Pork Chop Media. Thank you for your super chat saying, respect Tousi, mate. Free Gaza from Hamas. Yes, absolutely. There's some non-super chats as well. Someone said, but Israel was supposed to celebrate Palestinian diversity, use their pronouns and everything. Yeah, I don't think, I'm pretty sure the Gazans don't really know much about the phenomenon, which is the confused pronouns. If anybody thinks that people in Gaza would be allies to the LGBTQ plus minus division, everything else, yeah, they will be a little bit mistaken. Terranova says, I am Canadian. Carney is a disgrace. See, Canadians know it. Let's just double check. We're just waiting for some updates in regards to the actual operation on the ground. Oh, just heard in the background. Hang on. Let me bring this up for you. The volume. Might be slightly better. Hang on. Right, we'll just wait for the next explosion. I'll get the reaction on the live chat here. Sarah says, thank you so much for everything you do and for covering the subjects. That is not an easy job. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. Gotta keep going. Gotta do our job. There's a lot of comments about Mohammed, as usual, in the live chat. Every single time. Justice Please says that once Hamas gone, Gazan people and Palestinian people will be free. We don't want them in the UK. Yeah, so, I mean, tell that to the British Prime Minister, because the priority for the Labour government in Britain was obviously last week to make the major announcement, and this was in the middle of a crisis of migration. Keir Starmer there were calls for Starmer to resign because of mass migration, illegal migration, and he sent out Yvette Cooper at the time, when she was still Home Secretary, to save his job. So she stood up in the House of Commons saying, well, we got all these plans to stop illegal migration. We understand there's a bit of a problem. And then during the same speech, she also announced, oh, by the way, we now can announce that we are bringing in thousands and thousands of Gazans, Palestinians from Gaza. I'm like, okay, well, that's, if you want to be a masochist, at least be honest. Ida says that we don't want them in America either. Yeah, well, at least the American government has put a ban on it, so you can't go to America if you're from there. But the British government is slightly different. They have a different approach. We have a super chat from Dissidents of Doom from Canada saying supporting Hamas is anti-Palestinian. Well, it depends how you define Palestinian, obviously. So, there's no such thing. There was never such thing as Arab, Muslim, Palestinian. There was a short period of time under the British Empire when you had the Palestinian Mandate. Everybody was basically Palestinian. Jews, Christians, and Muslims. But the problem was that the Islamic side were just killing everybody. But yeah, no, they're anti-Palestinian. I mean, it's not a thing to be anti, because it doesn't actually exist. Super chat from James saying maybe these guys have been promised 72 goats, virgin goats, so they hang around for their pleasure. Well, is it the ones who are still in Gaza? But yeah, it still makes no sense because the mentality of the Islamists, on the one hand, they have been brainwashed. They try to trick themselves. For example, when somebody close to them dies, if there's a camera in front of them, they say they're happy, like celebrating that their relative is now a martyr. But this is just psychological harm. It's the whole thing is Islam is very bad for mental health because it doesn't actually fix it. Because if jihad and being a martyr was such a good thing, then it shouldn't really give you extra anger that somebody died. You have to celebrate, right, based on that. But it actually makes them more vicious and more angry and more violent, which doesn't make any sense from a normal human perspective. But from their perspective, it makes sense because everything is a huge contradiction when it comes to Islam. The whole text makes no sense. One minute they say you should do this, the next minute it says no, do the exact opposite. So let's just double check. There's some updates coming in. Right. Another super chat from Manan saying, have you met the son of Hamas in real life or in the net? That's Mossad. Yeah, Mossab Hassan Yusuf. No, unfortunately, I haven't actually met in person yet. So perhaps one day, I know he's always busy going to make speeches or whatever he does, or randomly go on Piers Morgan's show for interviews. People need to stop going on Piers Morgan's show. It doesn't really help anybody. There's no point. Amir from Israel says, it's important you to know the history of Palestine. It's not just an English thing, it's the name of the nation. Yes, I think everybody knows that, Amir. And it comes from the Roman days, not just the British Empire. But the point of the British Empire mandate to Palestine was what the Palestinian terrorists have been using, especially since the 1960s, to shift their narrative. They stole the flag of Jordan, which was supposed to be Palestine, basically, the new Palestine. And then they said, yeah, Palestine always existed. No, it didn't. There was a period of time during the Roman Empire where the word was created, and it was an insult, essentially. Anyway, so what's Amir saying? It's name of the nation since 117 to 1948 AD, but at any point in history, it never was a Palestinian independence. Yes, we already know that. That's the whole point of Tousi TV. We always repeat the same thing. There was never such thing as a Palestinian state. That's why no Palestinian supporter could actually ever tell you who the first president, king, or queen of this so-called Palestine was. Another one says, please share the petition to stop the recognition of Palestinian flag S. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of petitions. It's a waste of time. I don't understand. What is the obsession with petitions in the UK? It's a very British problem, by the way. We've had about 5 million petitions over the last 2 days to dissolve Parliament and get Keir Starmer to resign and Labour government to go away. And what do? They just have a debate in Parliament with about 5 people and just say, okay, we've done it, go away. Everyone's obsessed with petitions. All right. Any news, any time from Nepal, how they're doing? So yeah, there's a bit of a still chaotic situation. Obviously, if you want to stay up to date with everything we do, obviously we have the breaking news on YouTube, on Tousi TV, but download the Tousi TV app. Actually, I think it will come up on the screen somewhere down there. There we go. That's the end of the ticker. But yeah, you can also become a member of Tousi TV Plus by going on Tousi.tv. But the best thing you can do is download the app, because we will keep you guys posted on a daily basis on everything around the world, including Nepal. Right now, essentially, the update is that the military have been taking control of the streets. It's an unofficial coup, and that is still ongoing. So that's basically it. There we go. We got the QR code now on the screen as well for you guys, or just go on Tousi.tv. All right. What? Oh, got a super chat from Ida saying, congratulations on your wedding. Hope to see you guys in Phoenix. And we also have congrats in Persian. Thank you, Ida, and for your generous super chat. Well, that's insane, $50. Again, instead of doing that, you can become a member of Tousi TV Plus. But thank you, Ida, for that. Yes, and Charlene says, thank you, Maya and Danielle, for all you do for us. Stay safe and bless you both. With love from South Africa. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, so we will wait for. Hang on, let me just double check the latest footage from Gaza City. For those of you who joined late, I can just quickly show you what you missed in terms of the attack. Yes, that is the latest from Gaza City. Make sure, as I said, to subscribe to the channel and download the Tousi TV app, the home of geopolitical news from your app stores. I'm Maya Tousi, and we are the media.